Welcome back to State of the Nation. In today's Telegraph, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, channeling her inner King Canute, boldly declared Britain can't stop small boats by shouting at the sea. Which is absolutely right. But unfortunately, that's exactly what Labour is doing, shouting into the sea. Labour today announced plans to double funding for its Border Security Command Unit, taking the total budget to £150 million. Positioned as an innovative approach to the migrant crisis, which is obviously not innovative because it's increasing what's being done before, and it's therefore a continuation of what the Conservatives were doing prior to the election, except Labour's plan misses the key ingredient of all, an actual deterrent. One of the first things Labour did upon entering government was to scrap the Rwanda plan, as well, crucially, as abandoning the criminalisation of illegal migration into this country by small boat. The Conservatives recognised that crossing the Channel was not a legitimate means of coming to this country, hence the Illegal Migration Act designation of channel crossings as criminal. The people who did so beyond a certain date were never going to be given British passports. The Conservatives also recognised that the Rwanda plan was necessary to deter people from making the dangerous journey in the first place. But now, Labour will process each and every migrant in the backlog, the majority of whom will be accepted. And this will only get worse with the lack of a deterrent. The only way to solve the migrant crisis is to stop giving criminal entrants more rights than British citizens, and so to leave the ECHR, withdraw from the Refugee Convention, and revive the Rwanda Plan or an equivalent. The ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, is not what we agreed to, as the judges on the European Court of Human Rights have adopted the living document doctrine to make it up as they go along. Our rights in this country are defended and have historically been defended by the King in Parliament. That is a democratic and accountable body. The ECHR puts the rights of illegal migrants effectively ahead of British taxpayers. The Refugee Convention, a worthy document, was written in the aftermath of the Second World War and did not foresee the globalised nature of asylum or the ease of travel that there would be in the 21st century. As it is currently written, apparently up to 750 million, that's 750 million people, 10 times the population of the United Kingdom, 750 times, slightly more than the population of Somerset, could be entitled to asylum in the United Kingdom. And the Rwanda plan is what will ultimately deter people from crossing to the UK because they don't then stay in the United Kingdom. They want to come here, not go to Rwanda. So its absence means there is no effective deterrent. So we are left with a Labour government which is busy shouting into the sea, recycling small parts of old Tory plans while effectively opening our borders to anyone who is willing to cross the Channel. Labour's plan is a non-plan, a plan planless, quite simply because it doesn't really want to solve the problem. The Socialists believe in open borders. As ever, let me know your views. You know the email by now. It's mailmog@gbnews.com. But I'm joined now by the former Labour MP and friend of the programme, Lloyd Russell-Moyle. Lloyd, thank you very much for coming in. This is shouting into the sea, isn't it? Because Labour's just not serious about it.
No, I think that your introduction doesn't base on historically how we've got those numbers down. Let's remember the numbers were rising year on year up until 2002. So all through the 90s, at the end of the major government, and they peaked in 2002. And they did that for a number of reasons. One could argue was global politics, but if you remember, 2002 was hardly a year of no invasions. You know, we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq shortly afterwards. But what we did do is we dealt with the backlog. And one of the quickest ways of deterring people to come was to say your assessment will be made very quickly, and within a matter of weeks or months, you will be either back out on a ship home or you will have been settled here. And that put the numbers down. By 2010, they were the lowest that they had ever been, under 20,000 a year, and now they have...
Well, it's not the lowest it had ever been, actually. When Michael Howard was the Home Secretary, it was very successful policy.
I should be. Lowest was... the lowest in, lowest in 15 years. And since then, it has creeped up It creeped up slowly up until 2016, and then has been more rapidly, apart from COVID year, increasing. And that is because there were awful cuts in the Home Office. There's now a very big backlog. And the reason that people get human rights stays is not because they have a right to stay here or they've arrived here, but it is because once they are here for too long, then they get the right to family life because they have children, they have settled, etc.
But actually, people who are being processed are being given asylum. This was why Priti Patel's Act was so important, criminalising the crossing, because the people coming in are coming from Syria and Afghanistan who have over 90% acceptance of their applications for asylum. That's why Rwanda was so important, because it kept people safe. They were in a safe third country, but they weren't coming to the United Kingdom. And this was really a very important way of dealing with the problem.
Rwanda didn't deter anyone.
Well, that's because it hadn't been implemented, but it was about to come in.
No, I don't think it ever will deter anyone. I don't buy your premise there, I'm afraid. I think what deters people, bearing in mind the number of people... So the boats have started only in large numbers since 2018. And if you remember, Sajid Javid announced that there was this kind of crisis in the Channel. Before then, people came via ferry, or they came on the back of lorries. And people died in the back of lorries like they die in the sea. The numbers of people that died were equal to roughly the deaths that we have now, and the numbers of people that came were not that far off the numbers that we have now. The idea that things have changed much is not true. There is a relatively consistent number of people that come to this country. We have forced them to come on boats rather than come on
well, I don't think we forced them. We closed down the lorry route, but hold on,
there is no other route for anyone to come.
The lorry route was a route that you could close down by police action because there's a limited number of lorry entrance points. Exactly. It's mainly the short strait or the Channel Eurostar. With the sea route, there are any number of beaches you can land on. It's much harder to stop the departures.
Yes, you're quite right, but the sea route is still less used than the truck route was. And so this idea that there are large numbers of people baying at the sea to get over is just, I don't believe, to be true.
Well, there are tens of thousands who want to come, and the numbers have gone up.
No, the numbers have not gone up overall.
Well, the numbers have gone up in the last few months since Labour's been in office because people have known that they won't be criminalised. And they will get asylum here.
The boat crossings have increased slightly, not much, slightly.
They've gone up.
We're a month ahead than we were last year, but the weather this year has been more mild. Well, and a lot of it is probably based on weather than it is on policies. But what we do know is it's been pretty consistent, the number of people coming. If we want to talk about a migrant crisis, actually what we should be talking about is the huge numbers of legal migrants that have been let in by your government after we left the European Union. Hundreds of thousands of people of net migration.
I don't disagree with that.
To undermine British workers and wages.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think it was a great mistake to let in so many people, both from the EU, from the point at which we let in the Eastern European people, and then subsequently post-COVID. But those numbers are coming down very sharply because of actions taken by Rishi Sunak, as you know. That was a very effective part of his latter stage of government. But the illegal migration really concerns people because it seems unfair that people jump the queue by breaking the law, but we've also got a problem. Hold on just a moment.
Because there is no other queue for them. They can't join any other queue.
Well, they're creating a queue. And there are routes for people who come here legally if they've got skills.
Not for asylum.
If they've got skills.
But for asylum, there is no legal route to come to this country.
But they've already got to a safe country if they're coming here from France. They shouldn't be claiming asylum here.
OK, so
we have no obligation to
your policy would mean that effectively we would never have any asylum seekers.
Because
the only asylum seekers you would get is someone who happened to be here and their country suddenly turned into a war zone.
We would be able to do as we did, as David Cameron did when he was Prime Minister, take people directly from camps in Syria, which seemed a proper humanitarian response.
That's not necessarily better.
I think it is because we took women and children rather than young men.
OK, so what do you want economically for a country?
But that's legal migration rather than asylum. For asylum, you want people who are desperate, rather than people who can afford thousands of pounds for a trip.
You want a mixed bag, because if you just have the most traumatised, so Britain takes only the most traumatised and the most vulnerable. The other countries take the most able.
Because we take those through legal migration.
We end up having
We're going to have to move on. But thank you very much, always, Lloyd.